Today we're going to look at constructions, and constructions are made with your compass, and I have mine right here, and a straight edge, so something that you can draw a straight line with. So everything today is going to be using these two tools. So first thing, let's go ahead and take a look at what are perpendicular lines. You should be familiar with this. Basically, they are lines that meet at a right angle. And if you don't remember what a right angle is, basically they meet at 90 degrees. All right, picture that. Let's go ahead and draw perpendicular lines, and that's actually not enough to say that they are meeting at 90 degrees. You need the little tiny box on the corner to notate that that is actually 90 degrees. So let's go ahead and name these two lines. Let's say this is line M and this is line N. So the way we can write that these are actually perpendicular is to say line M is perpendicular, and that shortcut is an upside down T to line N. Okay. All right, now we're going to go ahead and construct. Whenever you see that word construct, you are actually going to be using the tools. You're not going to be just eyeballing it and drawing a line. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our compass and we're going to place our pointer on the end point, completely at the end, and we have to make sure that this pencil end is more than halfway. It has to be more than halfway, otherwise it won't work. Now, once you have that width, that's more than half the distance from A to B, you're going to go ahead and make sure the pointer's on the end, and you're going to start drawing an arc. This takes a little bit of practice sometimes, but when you draw the first arc, you may not change this actual width, because we're going to use this width, and we're going to take this and now put the pointer on the other endpoint at B, and we're going to draw the other arc using the same distance. Okay, so this is actually the same width right here as it was from A. Now you'll notice that these arcs intersect on the top and the bottom. They must intersect for you to draw this line. So if you don't have one of these intersect, you have to actually go back and extend the arc so that you actually see them meet. Once you have that, then you can go ahead and connect the top intersection point with the bottom. And once you do that, that will create the perpendicular bisector. Now, I do not want you to erase any of these arcs or these marks. This shows me that you used your geometry tools. Now, I'm going to go ahead and label this in the middle. I'm going to use the letter M because M sometimes stands for midpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and put that as M in the middle. That way, for this notation, I can go ahead and notate that that's right there in the middle. Now, since this is perpendicular, we have to say that this line is perpendicular to this line. Now, I need two letters to name a segment. So AB is one of them. So I will need something to show that this is actually also a segment. So I'm going to use another letter. I'll go ahead and use the letter N. So one of the notations I can say is that NM, okay, that's this section, is perpendicular to AB. Not only is NM perpendicular to AB, which takes care of the perpendicular part of this, but it is also a bisector. Now, bisector means it splits it in half. So if it splits it in half, that means the length from A to M is equal to the length from M to B. So another notation that we're going to say is that AM, and you can use the little line on top to show that it's a segment, is congruent, that means equal in measure, to MB. Okay, so those two notations right there show that it's a perpendicular bisector splitting it in half. All right, let's go ahead and try number 2. Number 2 is another one we're going to construct the perpendicular bisector, but of EF. Now, just because it's diagonal, you're still using the same steps. I'm going to put my point on F, and I'm going to make sure this is more than halfway. Now, I'm going to close it up just a tiny bit, but as soon as you have figured out what is a little more than half, I'm going to draw an arc, and don't erase it. Keep it the same width and just transfer the pointer to the other side where the E is. Sometimes you can use 2 hands on these, whatever makes it easiest, but you must have the 2 intersecting points to draw this out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and now that I have 2 intersecting points, I'm going to put my line segment in from the top to this bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and label that M again. You can label it any letter you would like. I'm also going to put the letter N up here. Okay, so now my notation, the part that says perpendicular, is the fact that NM is perpendicular to EF. And, oh, I should put these lines on top because we're saying the segment is perpendicular. So I'm going to go ahead and actually add that over here. All right, now the reason why we didn't do that up here is because it was the full name of the letter. They were not points on the actual line. So we didn't need to put any marks on the M and the N. All right, so we're done with the perpendicular part. Bisector means it splits it in half. So the length from E to M, so segment EM, is congruent to MF. All right, you should try this next one and pause the video to see if you can do this one on your own. Okay, hopefully you have paused and actually have tried this on your own. Put your pointer on D. Hopefully you went more than halfway. If it didn't, they don't intersect. What happens is these don't cross. It'll be too short. So that's the reason why. So go ahead and draw the first arc. Go back to the other side. Draw the second arc. They should intersect. And where you draw the line, we're going to go ahead and put a variable here. Let's say variable, a point M. And then we're going to say that they're perpendicular. So segment DC, you can start with DC, is perpendicular to, and let's make that NM again. Does it matter which order? It does not. That's why I did DC. Don't erase your paper just because you did it in a different order. You could say NM is perpendicular to DC. And you could switch the letters around. I could have said CD instead, and MN. All right, and then saying that this is congruent because it is a bisector, so you should have also said that DM, that segment, is congruent to MC. All right, the next one that we're going to do is what's called a perpendicular line through CD, and it's through this point O. So it's not a perpendicular bisector. It's not going to split it in half. This is going to be a line that's going to be perpendicular to CD, but from that point O. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our point on O. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw an arc so that it touches this segment twice. Now sometimes you have to extend the actual length of this segment so that way you can see the whole arc. But I'm going to go ahead and start right here, and I'm going to draw the arc so that it goes through this line twice. Okay, so I drew it. So now where these two lines meet, I can actually change my width as much as I want, But as soon as I put my pointer on this first point of intersection, I'm going to draw an arc. And that arc that I just drew, you can see it, I'm going to not change the width because I'm going to go now over to the other side where they actually cross, and then I'm going to draw the other arc. Notice that I have an X there now. I'm going to draw the line from O to that X. So now this line is perpendicular to CD, but it is not bisecting it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use another letter because I can't just name this segment O. I'll put a letter at the end, let's say H. Okay, you could make it any letter you would like. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that these are perpendicular. Remember, not a bisector, just perpendicular. So this segment OH is perpendicular, which is the upside down T, to CD. And that's the only thing that we can say. All right, let's go ahead and try that again. This time it is a little bit of a diagonal, but it's the same concept. Let's go ahead and first start off with our pointer on Q. Make sure this is wide enough. See, if I draw the arc right now, it actually would miss the actual line. So I'm going to make this a little bit wider so that when I draw this arc, it actually touches it twice. All right, once I do that, I can change the width, but once I put my pointer here to start drawing the X down below, I cannot change the width. This width has to be the same as when I go to here and draw the other arc. Once I have that X, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line from Q to the intersection down below. All right, let's go ahead and put a letter here. Let's make this QT. Okay, so our segment QT is perpendicular, upside down T, to FG. All right, at this point you should pause the video and try this one on your own. Okay, hopefully you've tried this one. And if you notice and you try to draw an arc from this point and try to hit this line twice, it doesn't work. You draw an arc here and then all of a sudden it's not quite reaching there. You can always extend this line so you can see it. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my Q here, and I'm going to actually make it a little bit smaller than this F so you can actually draw it in. And hopefully when I draw this, oh, and by the way, if you're having trouble trying to actually draw this, there's lots of ways using this compass. Some of you are getting frustrated trying to make this work. So once you get a width that you want, what you could always do is take the paper and just turn it. If you turn it and put the pencil down as you're turning it, sometimes that helps. So let's say I do this. See how this actually draws it in? So sometimes that helps, twisting it as you're drawing it in. Okay. So I actually have two lines there. Now if it didn't work for you, you can always make this line longer. Now I can change the width. Say like, I don't want this on top of the notation word, so I can always make it smaller. But as soon as you decide what you want this to be as far as how wide for that, you do not want to change it. So once I put my pointer here and I start drawing this first arc, I do not want to change it. I'm going to go ahead and go right straight to here, and I'm going to draw the other arc. There's my X. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and draw from Q to this point of intersection down below, and I'm going to name this T. So now I'm going to go ahead and write the notation. The notation is that QT, segment QT, is perpendicular to FG. Okay, let's go ahead and turn this over. And on the back side, we have another construction, which is the angle bisector. Now, what is an angle bisector? Let's go ahead and write the definition. An angle bisector is and it could be a sort of things. It could be a line, it could be a ray, it could be a segment. That divides an angle into two congruent angles. You can use the shortcut to write congruent if you would like to. Okay, so it's the line, ray, or it could be a segment that divides an angle into two congruent angles. All right, something visual, so we're just sketching this out. So if I have an angle, and I'm going to go ahead and just sketch out an acute angle. And I'm going to go ahead and let this be, I'll go ahead and label this with 3 letters. You need 3 letters to name an angle. Or you can just name one angle, but we're going to write the notation in a minute. So let's say this is angle ABC. Now, remember that this is going to be a line, array, or a segment that will divide this angle into 2 congruent angles. So it should be something right in between the two. And I'm going to actually draw a ray. Now, we are just taking a look at this, and we are eyeballing it. So it's not exactly that value, but it should be half. So if you mark this, you're showing that this angle is right in the middle and splitting in half. So this angle is congruent to this angle. Okay. Let's go ahead and put a letter inside here. Let's make that angle D. So what's the notation that we can say? Oop, that's a bell. Angle ABD, that's this angle up here, is congruent to angle DBC. ABD is congruent to angle DBC. So just as long as you're connecting the dots, I could have said DBA is congruent to DBC or CBD. All right, so let's go ahead and construct. That's again using our tools. So using our tools, you want to draw an arc that's going to go through the 2 sides of this angle. So it should pass through both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that. So here we go. Okay, so that's drawing this arc. I know I'm kind of moving it, but yeah, let's try that again. So here, you're drawing it here and 2 arcs. I'm going to erase the other one. Sometimes I have trouble with it too. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the one on the inside, which I got a little bit of the outside. But keep in mind, I want you to keep the arcs once you actually use it. So since my arc kind of moved while I was drawing it, I'm redrawing it. So this is my arc. Once I have those 2, you can change the width, but as soon as you put it here, you don't want to change the width. So I'm now going to draw an arc here, and I'm going to put my point on the other intersection and draw, oops, and draw the other arc. There you go. Where that X is where this is going to go through. So let's go ahead and draw from S all the way out here. And then I'm going to go ahead and label some points on here. So let's say that's R, S, and then T. And let's make this in the middle here Q, that point being Q. So now we can notate that this angle is equal to this angle in measure. So how do we do that? Just like you're tracing it, R, S, Q, and make sure you write angle, is congruent to angle, and we can use QST or TSQ. I'm going to use TS then Q. That's it. All right, let's try this again. Over here, another angle bisector of angle B. So I'm going to start with my pointer on B, and you can make this any width that you want. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to draw an arc through both sides of this angle. Then put your pointer on one end. You could change the width if you want. I'm not going to at this point. I'm just going to draw an arc at the top here. And then I'm going to draw this arc here. Let's see. Where the X is where I'm going to draw my ray. So I'm starting with B. I'm going to go ahead and draw this through there. And then let's make this A right here, B, and I'll make that C. And let's make this D. Okay? So angle ABD, which is this angle here, is congruent to angle CBD. All right, let's go ahead and do one more of these before you do one on your own. So we're going to start with this pointer on A. This looks like an obtuse angle this time, but same steps. Draw an arc so that it crosses both sides of that angle. And with this one, you may have to make this a little bit wider so that it actually is in between. So I'm going to draw an arc here, go back to this point of intersection to draw the other arc. And now I can draw and we'll do a segment this time. Okay. So I have, let's let this be letter C, A, and B. And let's let this one be the letter T. Okay. So notation, we have angle CAT, CAT is congruent to angle BAT. And go ahead and try number 10 on your own. Go ahead and pause the video. All right. I'm going to go ahead and go through this. This is a larger obtuse angle, so I'm going to go ahead and put my point on D. I'm going to go ahead and draw my arc so that it crosses both sides of this angle. Make sure that you make this a little bit wider. Kind of makes it a little easier to see the X up top here somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and draw one arc. Don't change the width. Go to the other point of intersection. Draw the other arc. And now I'm just going to draw my line. I'm drawing my line from D to that X, and we're going to name this. Let's make this the letter A, and let's make these two other letters, sorry. Let's make it B and C. All right. You could have used any letters you want, so just because I use these letters does not mean this has to be the letters you use. All right, angle BDA is congruent to angle CDA. And that's it. Okay? So please do not erase any of your construction marks, because that's the way I could tell you actually did this using your tools. And if you do borrow tools from me, please make sure that you return them before you go today. All right, and have a great weekend.